So IGN gave Dragonball Sparking Zero a score of 7 out of 10. The question that everybody has, besides the obvious one, is that a fair score? And the short answer is no. Nah, it's not a fair score. There's a few things that we actually gotta get into that the gentleman said.
Unfortunately, the bar to execute the various techniques of its diverse cast is very high and extremely frustrating. Inputs are simple overall, but early on, I often felt lost when combat picked up the pace. Part of that is admittedly on me. The last entry of the series I played with fervor, but that was right after Barack Obama was elected. The fast pace of Sparking Zero compared to Tenkaichi 3, mixed with the lax tutorial system, threw my 17 years older reaction speed out of the ring with ease.
I ain't gonna lie, when this game first came out, I zoomed home. I was doing like 80 miles an hour. Trying to get home. When I got home, I fired up the stream. I jumped right into episode battle. There was like a small mini tutorial at the beginning of the game, but I wasn't even worried about that. I jumped into episode battle, and while there were some skill checks in episode battle, and there were some things that I was like, I have no idea what's going on. This was all without me jumping into tutorial, right? So I actually beat episode battle without lowering the difficulty, without doing a single tutorial besides what's in the intro. And lo and behold, I'm in tutorial mode like, oh, this, and this. All the swaggy stuff the AI was doing, that's what I was getting caught with. And I start learning the game and I get good at it. Now, what this guy's talking about, execution heavy, man, if you see these frame vanish videos, which half of them last a million years, people do it until they don't run out of key. This game is not execution heavy. If you want execution heavy, go play Tekken or Street Fighter. And I play Tekken semi-competitively. And let me tell you, EWGF is way harder than anything you could do in this game. Period.
I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between regular fights and the training mode to check and double check my understanding of when and how to use these techniques, as well as in the settings to adjust my button schemes and accessibility toggles. But really the only effective teacher was 25 brutal hours of getting kicked around. Also, compared to modern day fighting games, Sparking Zero's training options are rudimentary at best. There's no expectation to lay out frame data and hitboxes in a less competitively focused game like this, but targeted drills or a more nuanced customization of CPU behaviors would go a long way to help beginners and returning players fly up to the high skill floor.
This is where due diligence pays off. This is a training mode where you have your customizable things, and honestly, I can't get over the fact that the guy mentioned frame data, considering that he considers this game to be difficult. Buddy, frame data is not going to help, but you have strategies that literally is allowed in training mode. In fact, you can focus down certain things that you want the AI to do, so you can work practicing against it and come up with countermeasures. But on top of that, like I said before, the training mode itself describes most everything pretty well. The one thing I would say that it doesn't do a good job of explaining is super counters, but it does the best it can for what the mechanic is. But long story short, once again, this is just where due diligence comes into play. So based on this gentleman's gripes that he did have with the difficulty of the game and there's not enough training, technically the game is a 9 by IGN standards, right?
Dragonball Sparking Zero is a final flash from the past, sometimes to a fault, as demonstrated by its archaic menus and remedial training tools. Its episode battles have the kind of reaction-heavy difficulty that doesn't really exist in most games these days, more than once crossing the line between challenging and frustrating.
Now again, I'm gonna, I guess, repeat it. Reaction heavy. The story mode is not reaction heavy. I pretty much ran through it. With the exception of Grade 8 Vegeta, they definitely do have skill checks in the story mode where you do have to try to figure things out. But the story mode is not execution heavy. It wasn't difficult. I think the most times I died with, like in Goku's story, for example, was Jiren, which is the final boss, which is supposed to happen, and I never lowered the difficulty. In this gentleman's case, I mean, just lower the difficulty. The review sounds like a skill issue. So like, I'm not gonna like belabor you with like the full details of IGN's scoring system, but I went through it. You can actually go to this link right here, corp.ign.com /review dash practices, and they kind of give you a rundown on what all their scores are. Like all of this up here is pretty much just like kind of like fluff, but they did confirm what I expected to be true, which is that each game is reviewed by one person, which I think is a terrible way to score things. You should at least have three people that you can kind of, you know, pull everything from. Give me your scores based on that. So like, for example, what Dragonball actually got is 7, which is a good. Playing a good game is time well spent. Could it be better? Absolutely. Maybe it lacks ambition, has a few technical bumps in the road, or is too repetitive. But we came away from it happy nonetheless. We think you will too. Now, they try to say that they're basically the paragraph above is a long way of saying that their review system doesn't actually necessarily make sense. Granted, yes, reviews are subjective, but there needs to be like a rubric for things. And if I'm going by this, I can't place it in the good section. There are games that they graded as great, and we'll actually get into that in a minute. But great is these games leave us with something outstanding to remember them by, usually novel gameplay ideas for single player or multiplayer, clever characters and writing, noteworthy graphics and sound, or some combination thereof. If we have major complaints, there are more than enough excellent qualities to cancel them out. So like you see that, and when we actually look at their rating system fully, we end up having to address the elephant in the room, which is what a lot of people are upset about. And that is that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero got the same rating as Concord. Which Concord didn't even last, if I recall, 2 weeks. It was kind of a dumpster fire. We'll say it was kind of a dumpster fire. The game didn't last but 2 weeks. They took it back. It got refunded to everybody. If I was going by this review by IGN, and I see why people are getting upset, if I'm going by this review by IGN, this game, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, it's only got about 2 weeks. It's not going to last. Allow me to say that this is actually why I do dislike single person reviews. I believe reviews should be done by a panel of people. Like, numerous people need to play and put in their input. I shouldn't just be able to give one person a game and say, come back with your opinion. Yes, reviews are subjective, but there has to be some type of degree of truth to them. And unfortunately, this guy, he missed some things. So like, a lot of people are complaining about the whole Concord thing, but I want to point out that these reviews were done by 2 different people, and there was no panel involved. So like, Concord's review, which got a good, was done by Travis Northrup. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which was a good, was done by Jarrett Green. So like, I kind of like looked into Jarrett Green because, you know, they tell you what other games these guys have reviewed. So I was like, okay, so surely he's reviewed like some more arena fighters or regular fighters, and he has some type of semblance of what's going on, and maybe he was just off with the execution. Maybe this is a complaint with everything. However, the closest thing I could find to this genre was WWE 2K series, and he gave WWE 2K23 a great. So if we actually go back and we look at the ratings, if we look at the ratings, a great says these games leave us with something outstanding to remember them by. Usually novel gameplay ideas for single player or multiplayer, clever characters and writing, noteworthy graphics and sound, or some combination thereof. If we have major complaints, there are more than enough excellent qualities to cancel them out. Now, me personally, WWE 2K23, what I remember from that game was a bunch of bugs. It was a fun game, no doubt. But I remember a bunch of bugs, like to the point where I would just be like, bruh, like I wouldn't play it because I just didn't want to deal with it, honestly. His review on this one ends with, though the showcase mode isn't as super as the subject John Cena, the sharp focus on refinement instead of reinvention helps keep WWE 2K23 as the gold standard of wrestling sims. So that was what he gave 2K23. So of course, naturally, I got curious, well, what did you give 2K24? He gave it a great. And while not drastically different, WWE 2K24 is better in almost every way, touching small but smart additions to well-tested systems and modes as opposed to taking bigger risks. This is the same footnote. This is the same final thought. This is the same verdict as WWE 2K23. It's just reworded. It didn't change much, but it changed enough that it's better than last year. And that's good enough for a great. And me personally, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. This is why we need a panel. Unfortunately, due to the system that they rate things in, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Enjoy Sparking Zero and have fun. By the way, my personal rating of the game, as a Dragon Ball fan, I'm going to give it a 9.5. But if I wasn't a Dragon Ball fan, it gets a solid 8.5 for me. And primarily, the point docs come from no crossplay in 2024, which I saw no mention of in the article. But, hey. That's it for now, guys. It's been Virgo Durai. Peace out.